All right, I'm going to need you to pay attention to the next piece of footage very carefully. All right, so this is a Vanguard. No big deal, right? No big deal, it's just a Vanguard. So we're shooting them, we're shooting them, we're shooting them. Not doing the best job of aiming, but we're hitting them pretty solidly. We're bringing those shields right down. Now, watch this. Now, notice how, as I'm circle strafing, he's keeping up with me in the turn. Watch right here. Here it is in slow motion. Watch. He bounces off of the hammerhead and keeps following me into the turn. And here he goes, he turns around, he aims at me, and boom. What happened? Did CIG make a pretty serious change to the Vanguard? So, a few years ago, we voted on a ship concept, and that was the twin-engine long-range fighter. And it was something that a lot of people, including myself, were very excited about. However, the twin-engine long-range fighter, the Bulldog, became the Vanguard. And that became the Deep Space Heavy Fighter. And by the time it became a flyable ship in game, things had really gone sideways. The design was a lot bulkier than a lot of people had imagined, though that wasn't really a deal breaker. But overall, the ship handled very poorly. The firepower was good as long as you could bring it to bear. It was decent, but it really wasn't something to write home about. And so I made a lot of comparisons with this ship and many other ships, and I said, here's where this ship doesn't really seem to stand up to the test. One of the things that really kind of killed the ship, in my opinion, was the fact that we couldn't change the guns in the nose, and the guns in the nose frankly hit like a wet noodle. They weren't all that powerful, and it wasn't all that impressive. But it's been 2 years since I've flown the ship. I had credit on my count, and I've settled down with a whole bunch of ships that I'm very happy with. But in the fighter department, I don't think it's any real secret that I've never been really all that happy, so I'm always willing to try new things. I've tried the Sabre, I've tried the Hornet, the Super Hornet, all kinds of different things. Recently I was trying the Buccaneer again. But I figured, you know what? Why not look at, the ship that I had originally viewed as possibly one of the worst fighters in the game, because apparently it's gotten some interesting changes. Now, keep in mind that earlier, I think in this week, earlier this week, I'd made a video where I said one of the difficulties of playing on the PTU is you don't know if it's a bug or if it's intended. So when that happened to me, I said, oh, well, you know what? I'll try the Buccaneer, or I'll try the Vanguard for a while, give that a shot, and just see how it works out. Now, it took me a while to kind of get the ropes of flying this thing again, and I had to nail down some of the, the guns, the firing. I tried different key configurations just to kind of get used to it again. And so my first initial try, not all that great. And I was looking at it, I was thinking, geez, where is it? Because I was trying it with the Revenant. The Revenant didn't really seem to be doing the job. And I thought, well, those M3A lasers, the ones in the nose, they've never been that good. So, how was that guy doing it? I mean, is it just a bug? Is it just an error? Is it something that I can't replicate? So then I tried using strictly the nose guns. And things changed.
Proximity alert. Proximity alert.
Now, I may be mistaken, but I believe at one point, I'm not sure if they're still called this, I believe they're still the M3 MVSA lasers or M3A lasers or something along those lines. But in order to get that hitting power, you actually had to take the Gatling gun off the bottom and switch it to a fixed M6A. When you had all those guns lined up just like that, you could get that kind of hitting power out of this ship. And possibly that's something that's actually worth, you know, experimenting with, because it seems like the ship now has the maneuverability that it always lacked. And that was one of the big problems. At one point I had even said, take those 4 guns, since they're fixed, put them on like some kind of little mini turret that the pilot or perhaps the co-pilot can operate, and you know, let the ship work that way, because its maneuverability in 2.1, I believe, and 2.2, whatever, beyond, was atrocious. I mean, this thing handled horribly. And now it feels like a whole different animal. And I'm actually enjoying it. I really, really am. I went out and I started doing some missions, and of course this is one of these go pick up the box from the you know, the wreck and return it to us at all of our missions. I generally always try to bang one of these out because I use this as a gauge. Okay, have they fixed it in today's patch or not? No, they haven't. Rico Battaglia? No, they haven't. Okay. And I wanted to go and I wanted to really test this thing out, but unfortunately, you know, to trigger the combat missions, you have to get to a certain point with Rudo to get the really good ones, and then you can kind of go out and just do them again and again and again, and you get the really good ones that you're after. But getting to Rudo can be sometimes a little bit of a problem. Now, you've seen me trying to do that again recently, and it wasn't really working out. Now, of course, to trigger the Rudo quest line, if you will, the first thing you have to do is you have to destroy the skimmers. Now, I'd attempted this, of course, recently, and I'd done it with the Buccaneer, and I'd done it with the Cutlass, but, you know, this was always a troublesome mission, and when you saw my Buccaneer attempt, it wasn't all that great. In fact, the timer ran out before the Buccaneer was able to destroy them all. And I mean, honestly, I had played around with the Buccaneer's configuration. Certainly, I think that if I had left the original configuration on it, it could have pulled it off. But I wanted something that kind of just knocked those satellites out. And in the past, I'd done it with the Cutlass. The Cutlass didn't really have that big of an issue with it. But why not try the Vanguard, right? So I took the Vanguard in and decided, let's make the attempt. Let's see if we can trigger the Rudo missions and just knock these things out real quick. And once I remember to take off the scanning interface, there we go. We're going to find out that actually it really does get the job done. Quite a difference. Now, this part screwed me up a little bit here, because you see this little piece of the satellite flying away, and I don't think the server maybe wasn't quite registering that that was actually, you know, that flaming piece of debris was actually a flaming piece of debris. So it wasn't giving me credit for destroying the satellite, and there it goes. So now move off to the next one and the next one, and, well, they suffered the same fate. Now, one of the other considerations that came to mind while I was flying the ship and I was going along this mission chain was the fact that way back in the day, we had available to us packages that allowed us to upgrade the Vanguard Warden to the Vanguard Sentinel or the Vanguard Harbinger. And of course, I had gotten one of the ones to upgrade it to the Vanguard Sentinel because the Vanguard Sentinel was the E-War version, so it was E-War added on top of the current firepower that you're seeing, though I believe that was missing the turret. The guy in the turret ended up controlling the E-War interface, and I don't believe the weapons were still up there, though I guess I could go back and check it on the sale page, but not right now. Possibly a little bit later as I look at this a little bit more, but the ship got the job done. Though it did have some overheat issues and taking down the Starfarer, it wasn't all that difficult to do, and I quickly resolved the situation and moved forward in the quest chain, which led me here to the mission before you meet Rudo, which is disposing of the person who was dismembered for possibly, angering the wrong people. And this kind of brings up one of the big problems with a lot of the fighters that you have in the game, which is if you have to do a little quick mission like this where you have to pick up something, there's nowhere to put it in those fighters. Now, of course, the Cutlass solves this issue and then some, but the Vanguard still has that space on the inside where you can go and you can just throw things down on the floor, and even though it doesn't technically count as a cargo space, it still allows you to accomplish these missions. And I have to admit it, I would have been one of the first people to sit there and sneer at the idea that the Vanguard had been fixed. I would have been one of those people. And, I always thought that fix it up, make a few changes, and this could actually be a really good ship. And it appears, for now, unless this is, just a big PTU mistake, that the Vanguard is actually good now. And maybe even a little bit more than good, verging on actually being great. One of the biggest concerns that we've outlined a lot recently has been, as this universe expands and as fighters appear to be more and more limited, here was that fighter, that original promise of the fighter that could go the long range, but in its original inception as a flyable ship, it was kind of a brick and kind of bullshit. Now it actually handles more like a fighter, and it's very pleasant to fly, and it hits hard. Though I still would like to be able to change the guns around, but now I'm thinking more along the lines of, what if I take that Gatling gun out from underneath the ship and replace it with a big distortion cannon, and then keep the nose lasers, even if I can't change them in the future. That might be an interesting thing to explore, an interesting idea at the very least. So I'm cautiously optimistic right now about where CIG is going with the Vanguard. It's going to take more testing. It's going to take this basically going live and this version of the Vanguard surviving into the future. But overall, it was a joy to fly, and it was happy times for everyone. Well, except for the guy who got dismembered. See you Monday.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.